The notification didn't sound like a bomb going off. It was just a soft, polite ping on my phone as I sat in the boardroom. But when I glanced down at the screen, the words shattered my life faster than any explosion could. Transaction alert $12,500 at Bella Sposa Bridal. Card ending in 4490. My heart stopped. That was my card, the supplementary one I gave my mother-in-law for groceries and emergencies. Last I checked, a wedding dress wasn't an emergency. But the real horror wasn't the price tag. It was the GPS location tag attached to the transaction and the photo my private investigator sent me 10 seconds later. My mother-in-law wasn't shopping alone, and she wasn't shopping for me. My name is Elena, and I built a multi-million-dollar logistics empire from scratch while my husband played video games and his mother complained about my cooking. I thought I was supporting a family. Turns out, I was funding my own replacement. If you've ever felt like your generosity was being weaponized against you, you need to hear this story. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because I didn't just cancel a credit card, I canceled their entire existence. This is how I did it. The boardroom was freezing. It always was. I kept the thermostat at 68 degrees because it kept people awake, kept them sharp. I was in the middle of closing the merger of the decade, acquiring a shipping firm that would double my company's footprint in Europe. But suddenly, the projected revenue charts on the screen blurred into meaningless colors. All I could see was that notification on my phone screen, glowing like a toxic ember on the polished mahogany table. $12,500. Bella Sposa Bridal. I blinked, waiting for the hallucination to pass. It had to be fraud. It had to be a mistake. My mother-in-law, Martha, was supposed to be at her Tuesday afternoon Bible study. She had made a big show of it this morning, asking me for $20 for the collection plate because she didn't want to break 100. I had given her 50. I was always giving her something: money, time, patience, access. I subtly unlocked my phone under the table, keeping my face composed. A CEO does not panic. A CEO investigates. I opened the banking app. The transaction was pending. I tapped on the card details: Martha's Supplementary Amex Black. I had given her that card 3 years ago when her car broke down on the highway and she didn't have a way to pay the tow truck. My husband, David, had looked at me with those puppy dog eyes, the ones I used to love but was starting to despise. He said, "Honey, she's old. She gets confused. Just give her a card for emergencies. She won't use it for anything else." Emergencies. Unless Jesus was getting remarried and needed a couture gown, this was not an emergency. Elena, do you agree with the valuation? My CFO's voice snapped me back to the room. 12 men in expensive suits were looking at me, waiting for the verdict. I stood up slowly. "The valuation is sound," I said, my voice steady though a cold fire was spreading through my veins. "But excuse me for a moment. I have a compliance issue I need to handle personally." I walked out of the conference room, my heels clicking rhythmically on the glass floor. The moment the heavy door sealed shut behind me, I didn't call the bank. I didn't call David. I opened the Find My app. David and I shared locations. It was a safety thing, or so he thought. He was supposed to be at his consulting gig, a glorified hobby I funded, where he gave business advice to startups that inevitably failed. His dot wasn't at his office downtown. His dot was at the Plaza, an upscale shopping district on the north side. I switched to track Martha's phone. She was on my family plan, so I could see her too. Her dot was right next to David's. They were together. My husband, who claimed he was swamped with meetings, and his mother, who was praying for my soul at church, were at a luxury bridal boutique on a Tuesday afternoon. A sick feeling churned in my stomach. Was David cheating? Was he getting married? But we were still married. You can't buy a wedding dress for a secret wedding while you're still legally bound to your wife, unless you're planning something truly delusional, or unless it wasn't for him. I needed eyes. I couldn't drive there myself. It was 40 minutes away, and by then they might be gone. I scrolled through my contacts to Lucas Security. Lucas was my head of corporate security, ex-military, and loyal only to the person who signed his paycheck. Me. Lucas, I said the moment he picked up. I need a favor. Off the books. Name it. Boss. I need you to pull the live feed from the Plaza Security Network. We have a contract with their property management group, don't we? We do? We manage their parking surveillance? Good. Access the cameras for Bella Sposa Bridal now. Give me 30 seconds. I stood by the window of my office, looking out at the city skyline. I felt like a stranger in my own life. I worked 80-hour weeks. I missed birthdays. I missed vacations. All to build this life, to pay for the house with the pool, the cars, the lifestyle David and Martha enjoyed. And while I was closing deals, they were doing what? I'm in, Lucas said, sending the feed to your tablet now. My iPad pinged. I opened the video stream. The camera angle was from the street, looking through the massive plate glass window of the bridal shop. The resolution was 4K, crystal clear. I saw them. Martha was sitting on a plush velvet ottoman, holding a glass of champagne. She looked happier than I had ever seen her. She was laughing, clapping her hands. David was standing next to her, looking at his phone, then looking up and smiling. He wasn't looking at his mother. He was looking at the fitting room curtain. The curtains parted. A woman stepped out. She was stunning. Young, maybe 24. Blonde hair cascading down her back in loose waves. She was wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, a mermaid silhouette with intricate lace and a train that seemed to go on forever. She spun around, beaming. Martha stood up and hugged her. David walked over and kissed her on the forehead. It was a tender, intimate gesture. The kind of kiss you give someone you protect, someone you love. I zoomed in on the woman's face. The air left my lungs in a rush. I grabbed the edge of my desk to keep from collapsing. It was Sarah. Sarah wasn't a stranger. She was my assistant, my former assistant, the one who had quit 2 months ago because she wanted to focus on school. The one I had given a glowing recommendation letter and a generous severance package because I thought she was a bright, hardworking kid. I had invited her to my home for Christmas parties. She had played with my dogs. She had made coffee for Martha when Martha visited the office to borrow cash. They were all there. My husband, my mother-in-law, and my ex-employee. They were planning a wedding on my credit card. The transaction alert I had received, $12,500, was just the deposit. I watched on the screen as Martha handed the sales associate a card, my black card. The associate swiped it. Ping. Another notification on my phone. Transaction approved. Martha laughed. Sarah twirled in the dress. David put his arm around Sarah's waist, looking at her with a mix of lust and pride. They looked like a perfect family. A family that didn't include me. A family that was being subsidized entirely by me. My finger hovered over the call button for David. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive down there and smash the window. I wanted to drag them out onto the street and scream to the world what frauds they were. But then I looked at Martha's face on the screen, the smug satisfaction, the way she sipped that champagne, knowing I was paying for it. If I confronted them now, they would panic. They would lie. David would say he was helping a friend. Martha would say it was a gift. They would gaslight me, cover their tracks, hide the assets I didn't know about, and disappear. No, screaming was for amateurs. I was a CEO. I didn't react, I executed strategies. I looked at the card management tab on my banking app. There was a button that said freeze card. I didn't press it. Not yet. Freezing the card would stop them, but it would alert them. It would just say declined. They might think it was a glitch. They might use another card. I wanted to hurt them. I wanted to humiliate them. Finally, I called the bank directly. I had a dedicated private banker named Charles. Elena? Everything all right? Charles asked instantly. Charles, I said, my voice deadly calm. I need you to flag a transaction on the supplementary Amex, the one ending in 4490. The bridal shop charge? It just went through. Do you want me to reverse it as fraud? No, I said. I want you to change the status of the card. Don't just cancel it. I want you to mark it as stolen level 5 security alert. Level 5? Elena, that triggers a police dispatch if the merchant tries to run it again. It flags the user as a potential identity thief. I know, I said, watching the live feed. Sarah was going back into the changing room. She was probably going to buy the veil next. Or the shoes. They are going to try to buy accessories in about 10 minutes. When they do, I want the terminal to lock down. I want the store manager to get the confiscate and call authorities prompt. Understood, Charles said, sensing the ice in my tone. Consider it done. I hung up. I sat back in my chair and watched the screen. They thought they were shopping for a fairy tale ending. They didn't realize they were currently starring in a horror movie, and the monster was watching from a high-rise office 40 minutes away. Sarah came out of the fitting room again, holding a pair of diamond-encrusted heels. She showed them to Martha. Martha nodded enthusiastically, pointing to her purse. My purse, essentially. They walked to the counter. I leaned forward. Go ahead, Martha, I whispered to the empty room. Swipe it again. Make my day. The wait was agonizing, yet delicious. On my screen, I saw Martha place the heavy black card on the counter with the arrogance of a queen. The associate inserted the chip. I held my breath. The manager walked over. He didn't smile. He picked up my black card and slid it into his pocket. The explosion happened instantaneously. Martha screamed, "Do you know who I am?" David stepped forward. He pulled out his own card. Declined. He tried again. Declined. Now, the panic set in. 2 security guards grabbed Martha by the elbows. I watched as my husband, his mother, and his mistress were physically escorted out of the store, empty-handed and red-faced. I closed the video feed. I sat down at my desk. If David was planning a wedding, where was the money coming from? I opened the company's internal accounting software. I pulled up the vendor history for his LLC. In 2024, the graph spiked like a heart attack, $240,000. Fake invoices, system, overhaul, cloud migration. He was embezzling, submitting fake bills that my system auto-paid. He was stealing from me to fund her. I needed to see the other side. I logged into his business bank account. Tiffany & Co., the Ritz-Carlton, a Porsche lease. But then I saw the big one. $8,500 a month to an escrow account. I searched the property records. 142 Willow Creek Lane. Price, $1.2 million. Owner of record, Sarah Jenkins. Co-signer, Martha Miller. My mother-in-law co-signed for my husband's mistress's house. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Hey, babe. Weirdest thing. My card got declined. Call me ASAP. We're stranded. He was lying to my face. I didn't reply. I picked up my office phone. Legal, get the forensic accounting team. We are triggering the clawback clause. I am going to foreclose on the house he doesn't technically own. Lucas, is the chopper available? Good. File a flight plan for Willow Creek Lane. I want to do a flyover. We're looking for my husband. The sound of a turbine engine spooling up is usually the sound of freedom for me. It means I'm going to a site visit, closing a deal, or escaping the city. But today, the rhythmic thrum-thrum-thrum of the rotors felt like the heartbeat of a predator. I buckled myself into the leather seat of the Bell 429. Lucas sat opposite me, holding a DSLR camera with a lens long enough to photograph a license plate from 3,000 feet. "We have visual on the target vehicle," the pilot announced. A white Uber SUV picked them up from the plaza, heading north. "Follow them," I ordered, "but stay high. I don't want them looking up and seeing the company logo." We ascended, the city of Manhattan shrinking into a grid of gray and glass below us. I watched the white SUV weaving through traffic. It was pathetic, really. My husband, who usually demanded I send a town car for him, was crammed into the back of an Uber XL with his mother and his mistress, fleeing the scene of their humiliation. 20 minutes later, the landscape shifted from skyscrapers to sprawling suburban estates. Willow Creek Lane was in a gated community. New money, big houses, small lots. "That's the house," Lucas said. "Number 1 and 42. It was a monstrosity. A faux Mediterranean villa with a terracotta roof and a pool that took up almost the entire backyard. It looked expensive. It looked tacky. It looked exactly like something Sarah would pick out. "Orbit," I told the pilot. "Lucas, start snapping." The shutter clicked rapidly. Click, click, click. The white SUV pulled into the driveway. The gates opened automatically. David must have had the remote on his phone. They parked. I grabbed the binoculars. I saw David get out first. He kicked the tire of the SUV in frustration. He was angry. Good. Martha got out next, looking around nervously. And then Sarah. She didn't look upset anymore. She looked defiant. She walked straight to the front door and unlocked it. But then I saw something else. A moving truck was backed up to the garage. 2 guys were unloading furniture. I adjusted the focus on the binoculars. They were carrying a sofa, a vintage emerald green velvet Chesterfield sofa. My breath hitched. "Zoom in on the truck, Lucas. The cargo." I looked at the high-res preview on the tablet. I swiped to zoom. It was my sofa, not a similar sofa, my sofa. The one I had bought in Paris 5 years ago. The one I had put in our climate-controlled storage unit because David said it was too old-fashioned. "They aren't just buying new things," I whispered. "They're looting my storage unit." I scanned the rest of the items. An antique Persian rug. Mine. A set of crystal lamps. Mine. A box marked Christmas decor. Mine. They had gone to my storage facility, where Martha had a key because I foolishly trusted her, and they were emptying it out to furnish their love nest. "That is grand larceny," Lucas said. "Transporting stolen goods across state lines." "They are literally building a life with the scraps of mine," I said. "It wasn't just greed, it was a replacement. Sarah wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She was wearing my life like a skin suit." "Will we call the cops?" the pilot asked. "No," I said. "If we call the cops now, it's a domestic dispute. He'll claim it's community property." I looked at the house again. Sarah Jenkins, co-signed by Martha Miller. "Shuktuantayam, yam, huge hantaho archies with embezzled corporate funds." Lucas smirked. "The entity that was defrauded. It's considered proceeds of crime, meaning Vanguard Logistics owns that house I finished, and everyone inside it is trespassing on corporate property." "Take us back," I said. "I've seen enough." As the helicopter banked left, my phone buzzed. It was David, again. He was calling this time. I stared at the screen. Hubby calling. I took a deep breath. I needed to buy time. I needed to freeze the assets before David realized I knew. I answered, "David," I said, injecting just the right amount of confusion into my voice. "I got your text. What is going on? He sounded breathless. Oh my God, finally. You have no idea what happened. It was humiliating. The card got declined. Both cards. The Italian place? I asked. The one near the office? Yes, exactly. He lied effortlessly. He was currently standing in the driveway of a mansion 40 miles away. Can you fix it? He asked. Mom is freaking out. I'll call Charles right now, I promised. I'll get the hold lifted, but it might take 24 hours. 24 hours, he whined. Elena, I have expenses. I need gas. I need groceries. Use cash, honey, I said sweetly. You always keep that emergency cash in the safe, don't you? Right. Yeah. Cash? He sounded relieved. Okay. Just fix it. Please. Love you. Love you too, I said. I hung up. I looked at Lucas. He was shaking his head. You're cold, boss. He has no cash in the safe, I said. I emptied it last week to pay the gardener. He's going to open that safe and find nothing but dust. We landed. Mark, my general counsel, was waiting for me on the roof. We traced the wire transfers, Mark shouted. It's confirmed. DM Solutions funneled $240,000 directly into the escrow account for the Willow Creek property. Good, I said. Draft the ex parte motion for attachment. I want to lien on that house by tomorrow morning. And Mark? Draft a termination letter for DM Solutions.
Breach of contract, fraud, embezzlement, and prepare a referral package for the district attorney.
We're going criminal, Mark asked. I stopped on the stairs. He stole $250,000, Mark. He cheated on me with my assistant. And he stole my grandmother's emerald sofa. I started walking again. I want him in handcuffs. But first, I want to starve him. I entered my office. I pulled up the smart home app for our main residence. Let's see how he likes living without amenities, I muttered. I remotely changed the thermostat in our master bedroom to 50 degrees. I changed the Wi-Fi password to Cheater's Pay Cash. I disabled his access to the garage door opener. He was going to come home tonight expecting a warm bed and a hot meal. Instead, he was walking into a freezer, disconnected from the world, locked out of his own garage. And while he was shivering in the dark, I was going to be sitting at the Ritz-Carlton, ordering room service, watching the forensic accountants tear his life apart. But there was one loose end. Sarah. She thought she had won. She thought she had the house. I pulled up her personnel file. I found her LinkedIn. She hadn't changed her password either. I updated her job title from Executive Assistant at Vanguard Logistics to Mistress and Embezzler at the Sarah Jenkins Experience. Then I posted an update. Excited to announce my new home purchase, bought with funds embezzled from my former employer. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag new beginnings. I hit post. Let's see how many likes that gets. I whispered. The security feed on my laptop screen was dark and grainy, illuminated only by the headlights of David's leased BMW X5 pulling into the driveway. I sat in the plush armchair of the executive suite at the Ritz-Carlton, a glass of Pinot Noir in my hand, watching the man who promised to love me until death do us part try to open his own garage door. He pressed the remote. Nothing happened. He pressed it again harder, as if brute force could override the code I had disabled 30 minutes ago. Nothing. He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. I could almost hear the curse words. He rolled down the window and punched the code into the keypad mounted on the frame. Beep, beep, beep. Fade, light. Access denied. I sipped my wine. Try 1234, David, I whispered. Or maybe try the date of your mistress's birthday? Oh, wait. The system is locked. He gave up. He reversed the car and parked it on the street, which was illegal in our HOA after 10 p.m. He was going to get a ticket, Add another $50 to the invoice. He walked to the front door, shivering in his thin blazer. The wind was picking up. He unlocked the front door with his key. I hadn't changed the physical locks yet because I wanted him to get inside. I wanted him to experience the environment I had curated for him. He stepped inside. The foyer camera picked him up instantly. He dropped his keys in the bowl and immediately rubbed his arms. "Elena!" he called out. His voice echoed in the empty house. "Why is it so freezing in here?" He walked to the thermostat in the hallway. He tapped the screen. Current temp 52 FFE. Target temp 50 temp fail. System locked. What the hell? He muttered. He pulled out his phone to use the app to change it. He frowned. He tapped the screen. He swiped down. No Wi-Fi. He went to his settings. He searched for networks. I switched camera views to the kitchen where he was now standing, looking confused. I zoomed in on his face as the list of available networks populated on his phone screen. He saw it. His eyes widened. His jaw went slack. Instead of Miller Manor 5Gs, the network was now number. Instead of Miller Manor 5Gs, the network was now number. He stared at it. He blinked. He looked around the empty kitchen as if the walls were listening. For a split second, I saw pure, unadulterated terror. He knew. He had to know. But then, the narcissism kicked in. The denial. No, his face seemed to say. She doesn't know. She's at work. This is a hack. He dialed my number. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. "Hey, honey," I answered, my voice groggy, pretending I had been asleep. "Is everything okay? You're home late." He sounded frantic. "Something is wrong with the house. The heat is off. The garage won't open. And the Wi-Fi, I think we've been hacked." "Hacked?" I asked innocently. "What do you mean?" "The network name," he hissed. It's derogatory. Someone changed it to something about cheaters. You need to call the security company." "Oh, David," I sighed. "I'm sure it's just a prank by the neighborhood kids. I'm staying at the city apartment tonight. Just wear a sweater. I'll call Lucas in the morning." "I can't wear a sweater," he snapped. "I have work to do. I need the internet." "Use your hotspot, babe," I said. "Unless you used all your data streaming movies or streaming wedding venues." "Fine," he grunted. "Are you coming home tomorrow?" "Yes," I said. "Actually, I have a surprise. I'm hosting a celebratory dinner tomorrow night at Le Bernardin. I want you to come. And I want you to bring your team."
My team. He froze.
"Yes, DM Solutions," I said brightly. "I was looking at the invoices today. Wow, you guys have been busy. $240,000 in billing this year? I want to thank them personally. Bring your project manager. What's her name? Sarah?" Silence. Dead silence. I could hear his breathing hitch. "Sarah," he choked out. She doesn't work for me, Elena." "Oh, right," I laughed. "I forgot she quit. Anyway, bring whoever is handling the account. 7 p.m. Don't be late." I hung up before he could answer. I watched the feed. David dropped the phone on the counter. He ran his hands through his hair. He was pacing now. Manic circles around the kitchen island. "Shit, shit, shit," he whispered. He picked up his phone again. He dialed a number. I didn't need to guess who. "Sarah, pick up," he hissed. "Pick up." "She knows." "No, she invited us to dinner. The Wi-Fi name is Cheaters Pay Cash Underfuge. Just delete everything. Delete the emails. I'm scrubbing the laptop now." He hung up and ran toward his office. I smiled. Scrub away, David, I said to the screen. The cloud is forever. I picked up my own phone and called Lucas. He's panicking, I reported. He's going to try to wipe the laptop. We already imaged the drive remotely 2 hours ago, Lucas said. We have everything. The fake invoices, the wedding Pinterest board. It's all secured. Good. Now, about tomorrow night, the dinner. It's not a dinner, Lucas. It's a deposition with appetizers. I need you to have the police on standby. Police. Lucas paused. For what charge? When he realizes he's caught, I said, watching David frantically typing in the dark, he's going to try to transfer the remaining money. When he does that, when he crosses state lines with a wire transfer, that's federal. You want him arrested at the restaurant? No, I said. I want him served with the divorce papers at the restaurant. I want him arrested when he tries to run. Cutting. I hung up. I looked back at the screen. David was shivering in the 50-degree house, wrapped in a blanket, trying to erase his digital footprint. He looked small. He looked pathetic. But then my phone pinged with a LinkedIn notification. Someone had commented on the profile update I made for Sarah. I opened it. It wasn't a random person. It was Martha.
Martha Miller, this is slander. My son is a good man. Someone hacked this account. I am calling the police.
I laughed out loud. The sheer audacity. I replied publicly. Elena Miller. Hi, Mom. Since you're calling the police, ask them about the furniture in the You Rent It truck at 142 Willow Creek Lane. I'm sure they'd love to see the receipt for my emerald sofa. I watched the screen. David's phone buzzed. He picked it up. He read the notification. He threw the phone across the room. It smashed into the wall. He slumped into his chair, head in his hands. He wasn't scrubbing the laptop anymore. He was crying. It was the first real emotion I had seen from him in years. Regret? No. Fear. He was afraid of the dark. He was afraid of the cold. And mostly, he was afraid of me. Unlegitimate. I finished my wine. Sleep tight, hubby, I whispered. Tomorrow we feast. The private dining room at Lee Bernarder was a glass-walled aquarium of silence, insulated from the main floor's hum of polite conversation. I sat at the head of the long rectangular table, dressed in a crimson Alexander McQueen suit that cost more than David's car. I checked my reflection in the wine glass. I didn't look like a wife about to dismantle her marriage. I looked like a shark circling a seal. It was 7:05 p.m. They were late. I swirled the vintage Bordeaux, a 2014, the year we bought our first house. And then the heavy oak door finally creaked open. Disheveled was an understatement. David walked in first. He looked like a man who had slept in a freezer, which technically he had. His eyes were bloodshot. His usually immaculate hair was messy. He wore the same suit as yesterday, wrinkled at the elbows. Behind him trailed Sarah. She wasn't wearing business casual. She was wearing a white cocktail dress, too short, too tight, and the diamond heels she had bought with my card yesterday. The audacity was breathtaking. You made it, I said, not standing up. Please, sit. David pulled out a chair for Sarah, his hand shaking visibly. They sat down like two teenagers called into the principal's office. Elena, David started, his voice cracking. Look about the internet and the house. Hush, I said softly, holding up a finger. We're not talking about domestic issues tonight, David. This is a business dinner. We're celebrating the success of DM Solutions. I wanted to meet the key talent behind the massive billing spikes. I looked at Sarah. You must be the cloud architect. Or was it system overhaul specialist? The invoices were so vague. I couldn't quite tell. Sarah stiffened. I managed the logistics. For the projects. Logistics, I repeated, smiling. That's my field. Funny, I don't remember seeing your credentials in the vendor file. But then again, you made excellent coffee. The waiter entered. Sparkling or still champagne, I ordered. Krog Claw Gambane. We have a lot to toast to. A new house, a wedding, a cloud migration. David turned pale. He reached for the water glass and downed it in one gulp. Elena, please, he whispered. Can we just talk, privately, without her? Why? I asked. She's part of the team, isn't she? She's the co-signer on the Willow Creek property. It would be rude to exclude the homeowner. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Sarah dropped her fork. It clattered against the fine china like a gunshot. You know, Sarah whispered. I know a lot of things, Sarah, I said. I know about the house. I know about the you-rented truck. I know about my emerald sofa currently sitting in your living room. And I know about the wedding dress. David slammed his hand on the table. It's not what it looks like. Really? I asked. Because it looks like you embezzled $240,000 from my company to play house with my former assistant. I borrowed it, David pleaded. It was a loan. I was going to pay it back. A bridge loan, I mused. Usually, you ask the bank for those. Not your wife's accounts payable department. I didn't forge them, he argued. I provided services. On what? I snapped. On how to ruin your life in 3 easy steps? I reached under the table and pulled out a remote control. I prepared a little presentation, I said. Since we're talking business. I pointed the remote at the wall. A screen descended. Slide 1. The invoice from DM Solutions. Slide 2. The bank transfer to Oakwood Escrow. Slide 3. The deed to 142 Willow Creek Lane. Slide 4. A photo taken from the helicopter showing David and Sarah standing in the driveway next to my stolen furniture. David stared at the screen. He looked like he was going to vomit. Sarah was crying now. David said you wouldn't care, she sobbed. He said you had an open marriage. I looked at David. Roommates? Is that what you told her? And you believed him, I asked Sarah. You worked for me for 2 years. Did you really think I was the kind of woman who would let her husband keep a pet on the company dime? I thought it was his money, Sarah stammered. He said he had a trust fund. He has an allowance, I corrected. And as of yesterday, that allowance is 0. I clicked the remote. The screen went black. Here is the situation, I said, standing up. The house on Willow Creek Lane was purchased with stolen funds. That makes it subject to a constructive trust. By noon tomorrow, the locks will be changed and the property will be seized by Vanguard Logistics. Sarah let out a wail.
But my things are in there.
Your things, I laughed. You mean my sofa, my rug? Those will be recovered. I stopped behind David's chair. I put my hands on his shoulders. He flinched as if I had burned him. And you, David? You have a choice. Anything, he wept. I'll sign a postnup. I'll end it with her. Just don't ruin me. I don't want a postnup, I whispered. I want a confession. I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick envelope. I tossed it onto the table. These are divorce papers and a confession of judgment. It states that you admit to the theft of $240,000. It states that you transfer all assets to me and you waive all rights to alimony. If I sign this, David looked at the papers, his hands trembling. I leave with nothing. If you sign it, I won't press criminal charges, I said. You walk away, broke but free. And if you don't, I said, looking at the door to the adjoining room. Then Lucas opens that door. And behind it aren't waiters. It's Detective Miller from the NYPD Fraud Division. David looked at the door. He looked at Sarah. He looked at me. He realized the trap hadn't just sprung. It had crushed him. "Do you have a pen?" he whispered. I handed him my Mont Blanc. "Use mine. It writes beautifully on death certificates."
He signed. He didn't even read it. He just signed page after page.
"Good," I said, taking the papers. "Now, get out! Elena, get out!" I roared, before I change my mind about the cops. David scrambled up. He ran for the door. Sarah stood up, wiping her eyes. "You're a monster," she spat. "I'm a CEO," I corrected. "You were just a bad investment. Goodbye, Sarah, and enjoy the walk home. I imagine the Uber app doesn't work when the credit card on file is reported stolen." She froze. "You didn't." "Oh, I did." I smiled. "I canceled David's card, but I also flagged yours. You used the company Wi-Fi to log into your bank yesterday. Lucas captured your credentials. Your accounts are frozen for suspicious activity. You have no ride, you have no house, and you have no boyfriend." She screamed, a raw, primal sound. Then she turned and ran after David. I stood alone in the silence. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. I had won. I had the confession. I had the assets. But then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lucas. They left the building. "But, Elena, you need to see this. Martha just pulled up in front of the restaurant. She has a news crew." My blood ran cold. I looked down at the street. A news van was double parked. Martha was standing there, pointing up at the restaurant windows, talking to a reporter. She wasn't giving up. She was going nuclear. She was going to play the abused elderly mother card on the 10 o'clock news. I sipped my champagne. "Okay, Martha," I whispered. "You want to play Media Wars? Let's play." I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a lawyer. I opened the folder on my phone, labeled Security Foot the Progress Bar. On my phone screen, hit 100%, upload complete. I watched the thumbnail appear on my feed, a high-definition still frame of Martha screaming at the store manager while security guards held her arms. The caption I chose was simple, factual, and devastating. "When you use your daughter-in-law's stolen credit card to buy a wedding dress for your son's mistress, and the card gets declined. #karma, #embezzlement. I didn't tag them. The internet does its own detective work. Within seconds, the first like appeared, then 10, then 100. The algorithm, sensing the toxic cocktail of wealth, betrayal, and public freakout, grabbed the video and sprinted with it. Down on the street, unaware that she was rapidly becoming a global meme, Martha was giving the performance of a lifetime. I watched through the window as she dabbed at dry eyes with a handkerchief, leaning heavily on the reporter's arm for support. She was playing the frail, abandoned widow card. The reporter, a young guy looking for his big break, was nodding sympathetically. David and Sarah were standing a few feet away, looking like deer in headlights. David was trying to hide his face. Sarah was checking her phone, probably trying to call an Uber that would never come because I had frozen her accounts. I stood up. I smoothed my Alexander McQueen suit. I checked my lipstick. "Lucas," I said into my earpiece, "I'm coming down. Meet me at the front entrance with the car." "Copy that," Lucas replied. "Be careful, Elena. It's a zoo down there." I took the elevator down. The lobby was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos waiting outside. The doorman looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Miller, there are people outside. Do you want to use the side exit?" "No," I said, putting on my sunglasses. "I have nothing to hide." Open the door. He pushed the heavy glass door open. The noise hit me like a physical wave, shouting, camera shutters clicking rapidly, the blinding strobe of flashes. Elena, over here. Is it true you evicted your husband's mother? Did you cut off their health care? Martha saw me instantly. Her eyes lit up with malicious glee. She pointed a manicured finger at me, a finger wearing a ring I had bought her for her 60th birthday. There she is, Martha shrieked. That's the woman! That's the monster! She threw her own husband out on the street. She's trying to kill us! The camera swiveled toward me. The reporter rushed forward, microphone extended like a weapon. Mrs. Miller, your mother-in-law claims you are financially abusing her. Do you have a comment? I stopped. I didn't run to the car. I stood perfectly still on the red carpet. I waited until the silence stretched, until every lens was focused on me. Then I lowered my sunglasses. My comment, I said, my voice calm, projecting clearly to the microphones, is that financial abuse is indeed a terrible crime. Which is why I just handed over a signed confession from my husband admitting to the embezzlement of $240,000 from my company. The reporter blinked, embezzlement, and I continued turning my gaze to Martha. I find it interesting that my mother-in-law is crying poverty while wearing a Cartier tank watch that was reported stolen from my home 3 months ago. The silence on the street was absolute. Martha froze. She instinctively covered her left wrist with her other hand, but it was too late. The cameras had zoomed in.
That watch? I said, pointing at it.
Along with the vintage emerald sofa she helped steal yesterday, are currently listed as evidence in a grand larceny investigation. So, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. Unlike my husband, I actually work for my money. I signaled Lucas. The black town car pulled up. Wait, the reporter yelled. Mrs. Miller, are you pressing charges? I paused with my hand on the car door. I looked at David, who was cowering behind a lamppost. I looked at Sarah, who was sobbing openly. And I looked at Martha, whose face had gone from victim to vicious. Stay tuned, I said. I got in the car. The door slammed shut. Go, I told the driver. As we pulled away, I watched through the tinted rear window. The reporter had turned back to Martha. But he wasn't nodding sympathetically anymore. He was asking about the watch. It was chaos, and I was driving away from it in a climate-controlled leather seat. That was surgical, Lucas said from the front seat. The video you uploaded just hit 50,000 views. Someone identified the watch model and linked it to the police report. The internet is literally doing the police work for us. Good, I said, closing my eyes. But we aren't done. Where is the forensic report on the personal accounts? That's the thing. Lucas said, his tone shifting. He sounded serious, worried. Mark just finished the deep dive into Martha's finances. We wanted to see if she had any hidden assets. And Elena, she doesn't have assets. She has debt. Massive debt. I opened my eyes. What kind of debt? Credit cards. No, Lucas said. Gambling. I sat up. Gambling? Martha thinks bingo is a sin. Apparently not, Lucas said, handing me a file. We found a secondary bank account linked to an online casino in Malta. I opened the file. The numbers were staggering. Withdrawal 5,000, withdrawal 10,000, withdrawal 15,000. She's lost over $300,000 in the last 2 years, Lucas explained. That's why she needed the emergency card. She was chasing losses. But where did she get $300,000 to lose? I asked. David only stole $240. That's the scary part, Lucas said. Every time David embezzled a large sum, half went to Sarah, and the other half went to a shell company called Blue Water Consulting. What an ass, I said. Blue Water belongs to Martha. It does. But last month, the transfer stopped. David ran out of fake invoices. But Martha's withdrawals didn't stop. She took out a loan, a private loan, from a guy named Vinny in Jersey City. I stared at the text messages in the file. Payment due, Martha. Don't make us come to the house. The pretty daughter-in-law has nice things. Shame if they broke. My blood turned to ice. She borrowed money from loan sharks, I whispered. And she used me. As collateral? It looks like it, Lucas said grimly. That's why she was so desperate for the wedding. She thought if David married into Sarah's family money, she could pay off the shark. But the wedding isn't happening, I realized. And David is broke. Exactly. Which means Martha can't pay Vinny, and Vinny knows where you live. I looked out the window. I thought I was dealing with a white-collar crime. But I had just kicked a hornet's nest that belonged to organized crime. Turn the car around, I said suddenly. What? Lucas asked. Not to the restaurant, I said. To the police station. We need to file for protective custody. If Martha owes money to the mob and she can't pay, she is going to get desperate. She's going to try to rob me tonight. Rob you? She has no car. She has keys, I said. Not to the house, to the office. Lucas slammed on the brakes. The vault. She has my spare key fob, I said. I gave it to her last year. I never asked for it back. And the vault holds $2 million in bearer bonds, Lucas realized. Step on it, Lucas. I ordered. We need to get to the tower before she does. If she gets those bonds, she disappears. And if she doesn't, Vinny comes for me. The car screeched a U-turn. I pulled up the security feed from my office building, lobby camera 1. It was empty. Then the revolving door spun. Martha walked in. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked focused. And behind her walked a man, large leather jacket, keeping his head down. It wasn't David. Lucas, I said, my voice trembling. She's not alone. She brought the shark with her. We're 5 minutes out, Lucas said, pulling his weapon. Call 911. Tell them we have an active robbery in progress. I dialed, but on the screen, I saw Martha walk up to the night guard, old Mr. Henderson. She smiled at him. She waved. Mr. Henderson smiled back. He recognized her. He buzzed her through. She was using my kindness against me one last time. She was using her face to walk a killer right into the heart of my empire.
Don't hurt him, Martha, I whispered. Please don't hurt him.
The elevator began to rise. Floor 1, floor 10, floor 20. My office was on floor 40. Faster, Lucas, I yelled. This wasn't about divorce anymore. This was a hostage situation waiting to happen, and I was the only one with the code to the vault they were coming for. I wasn't just a witness watching on a screen. I was the target, and I was heading straight into the kill zone. The speedometer on the Lincoln Town car hit 90 as we tore down Broadway. The city blurred into streaks of neon and shadow, a visual echo of the chaos unraveling in my life. On my phone screen, the security feed from the 40th floor was a silent horror movie. I watched as the elevator doors slid open in my executive lobby. Martha stepped out, her movements jerky and frantic. The man behind her, the shark, moved with the predatory grace of someone who hurts people for a living. He was wearing a baseball cap pulled low, but I could see the bulk of a weapon under his jacket. We are 2 minutes out, Lucas said, his voice tight. He checked the clip in his sidearm. Elena, you stay in the car. I'll clear the floor. No, I said, my eyes glued to the screen. She can't open the vault with a key fob. It requires a biometric scan, my retina, or an emergency override code.
Does she have the code?
No, I said, but David knows it. And if she's desperate enough to bring a hitman to my office, she's desperate enough to call David and beat it out of him. I watched on the screen as Martha rushed to the heavy glass doors of the inner office. She swiped her fob. Beep! Green light. The doors unlocked. I had never revoked her access. It was the one oversight in my otherwise perfect security audit.
Hesitate her inside.
Martha ran straight to the wall behind my desk. She pushed aside the painting of the ship launching, a gift from the board of directors, to reveal the steel face of the safe. It wasn't just a fire safe, it was a commercial-grade vault. She started punching numbers. I zoomed in. She was trying birthdays, David's, mine, her own. Red light, red light, red light. The shark stepped forward. He grabbed Martha by the shoulder and shoved her against the wall. He said something. Martha shook her head, crying. He raised his hand and slapped her. I flinched in the car. He's hurting her, I whispered.
She brought him there.
Elena, Lucas reminded me. She made a deal with the devil. We're here, the driver announced, screeching to a halt in front of Vanguard Tower. I didn't wait for him to open the door. I scrambled out, Lucas right on my heels. We burst into the lobby. Mr. Henderson, the night guard, stood up, looking confused. Mrs. Miller, he stammered. Your mother-in-law just went up. She said she forgot her medication in your office. The gentleman with her said he was her driver. Lock the doors, Henderson, Lucas barked, flashing his badge. Don't let anyone in or out, and stay down behind the desk. But
Do it!
we ran to the express elevator. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. The doors opened instantly. We stepped in. The ascent takes 45 seconds. It felt like 45 years. I watched the floor numbers climb. 10, 20, 30. Stay behind me, Lucas ordered, drawing his weapon. When the doors open, we go low. I need to talk to him, I said. He wants money. If he thinks the police are coming, he might start shooting. I can buy us time. You can't negotiate with these people, Elena. I negotiate for a living, I said, smoothing my suit jacket. Just don't miss if I give the signal. Ding. Floor 40. The doors slid open. The office was dimly lit, illuminated only by the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of sobbing echoed from the back of the room. We stepped out silently. The plush carpet absorbed our footsteps. I saw them. Martha was on her knees in front of the safe, hysterical. The shark was standing over her, holding a pistol. He wasn't even looking at her, he was looking at the safe, calculating if he could blow it open.
I can't, Martha wailed.
I don't know the code. Please, I'll get the money another way. You're out of ways, Martha, the man grunted. His voice was gravel. Vinny is tired of your stories. You said there were bonds. Paper. Untraceable.
There are $2 million. Just give me time to call David.
David is broke, I said, stepping out of the shadows. The man spun around, raising the gun. Lucas stepped out to my right, his weapon trained on the man's chest. Drop it! NYPD Private Security, drop the weapon. The man didn't drop it. He grabbed Martha by the hair and hauled her up, pressing the barrel of his gun against her temple. Martha screamed, a high, piercing sound of pure terror. Back off, the man yelled, or Grandma gets it. I didn't flinch. I stood in the middle of the room, hands visible, looking him dead in the eye. You don't want to do that, I said calmly. You're a collections agent, not a murderer. Killing her doesn't get Vinny his money. It just gets you a life sentence. The man hesitated. He looked at Lucas, then at me. He was calculating the odds. "Who are you?" he snarled. "I'm the woman who owns the vault you're trying to break into," I said. "I'm Elena Miller, and I know exactly how much she owes you. $315,000 plus interest." Martha's eyes went wide. "Elena, help me, please. He's going to kill me. Give him the bonds. Just open the safe." I looked at her. She was a mess. Mascara running down her face, the stolen Cartier watch hanging loosely on her wrist. She was begging me to save her life with the money she had tried to steal from me. "You brought a gunman to my office, Martha," I said coldly. "You put my staff at risk. You put me at risk because you couldn't stop playing roulette." "I did it for the family," she sobbed. "I was trying to win it back for David, for the baby." What baby?" I asked, sharp. Martha froze. She realized she had slipped. "Sarah is pregnant," she whispered. "That's why they needed the house. That's why I needed the money. Vinny threatened to hurt Sarah and the baby." The room spun. Pregnant. Sarah was pregnant. My husband had embezzled my money, bought a house, and planned a wedding because his mistress was carrying his child. And Martha knew. Martha had orchestrated the whole thing to protect her future grandchild, all while smiling in my face and eating my food. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was biological. They were replacing me entirely. I felt a cold rage settle over me. It was heavier than the fear. I looked at the gunman. "You want the money?" I asked. "Open the safe," he ordered, tightening his grip on Martha. "I can't open the safe," I lied. "It's on a time lock. It won't open until 8 a.m. "Liar," he yelled. "Check the panel." I shrugged. "But here is the reality. The police are in the lobby. I called them 5 minutes ago. You have about 90 seconds before SWAT breaches this floor." The man's eyes darted to the elevator. He knew I was telling the truth about the police. He could probably hear the sirens now, wailing far below on the street.
"I'm taking her," he said, dragging Martha toward the emergency stairwell. "She's my insurance."
"No!" Martha screamed, clawing at his arm. "Elena, don't let him take me. He'll kill me. Pay him, please." I looked at her. I thought about the baby. I thought about the wedding dress. I thought about the years of snide comments, the stolen furniture, the lies. "Lucas," I said, "stand down." Lucas looked at me, shocked. "Elena?" "Let him go," I said. "He's not leaving with my bonds. He's leaving with his debtor." The gunman smirked. He dragged Martha to the stairwell door. She was kicking and screaming, calling my name, begging for mercy.
Elena, you can't. We're family.
"We were never family, Martha," I said softly. "I was just the bank. And the bank is closed." The heavy fire doors slammed shut behind them. Silence returned to the office. "Elena," Lucas said urgently, holstering his weapon, "we have to follow them. If he kills her." "He won't kill her yet," I said, walking over to my desk and pouring a glass of water. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "She's his leverage against David. He's going to call David and demand a ransom. He doesn't know David is broke. So what do? "We let the police handle the hostage situation," I said, "but while everyone is looking at the stairwell." I walked to the safe. I placed my eye against the scanner. Beep, green light. The heavy steel door swung open. Admin card? There wasn't one. Lung as intact neatly were the bearer bonds. $2 million. And next to them a stack of hard drives, my backup servers. "Lucas," I said, "help me pack these. If the police turn this place into a crime scene, I lose access to my capital. I need to move the assets." "You're worried about the money?" Lucas asked, incredulous. "Your mother-in-law was just kidnapped by the mob." She made her bed, I said, tossing a stack of bonds into my briefcase. Now she has to spin the wheel. Sirens wailed louder. Blue lights flashed against the glass. The police were here. We go out the cargo elevator, I said. We go to the precinct. We file the report. But we do not mention the pregnancy. That is not my news to tell. As we loaded the bag, my phone buzzed. It was a text from David. David, Elena, help. Mom just called me. She's with a man. He says if I don't bring $300K to the docks in an hour, he's going to throw her in the river. I don't have the money. You froze everything. Please, Elena, unfreeze the account just for an hour. Save her.
I looked at the text. I looked at the briefcase full of bonds.
I typed my reply. Me sorry, David. Fraud protection protocols are strict. Have you tried calling Sarah? I hear she's expecting. Maybe she can expect a miracle. I can condose. Didn't taking the living passion. Let's go, Lucas, I said. I have a feeling it's going to be a long night. We slipped out the back just as the SWAT team breached the front lobby. I was leaving my office, but I was taking my power with me. Martha was on her own, and for the first time in her life, she was going to have to pay her own bill. The coffee at the 19th precinct tasted like battery acid and regret, but I drank it anyway. It was 3 a.m. I was sitting in an interrogation room, not as a suspect, but as a victim. Across the metal table sat Detective Miller, the same man who had been waiting in the private dining room at the restaurant just hours earlier to arrest my husband. Now, he was taking notes on the kidnapping of my mother-in-law. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Let me get this straight, Mrs. Miller, the detective said, rubbing his temples. Your mother-in-law, Martha Miller, entered your office building using a key fob you provided. She was accompanied by an armed man. They attempted to access your safe. When they failed, the man abducted her. That is correct, I said, my voice steady. I had wrapped myself in a blanket a nice female officer had given me. It made me look vulnerable. It was a prop. And you believe this man is a loan shark? My security team uncovered evidence of significant gambling debts, I said, nodding toward Lucas, who was standing by the door like a statue. She owed over $300,000. I assume she brought him to my office to pay him off with my assets. When I couldn't open the vault, he took collateral. You couldn't open the vault? The detective looked at me with a raised eyebrow. Or you wouldn't. I met his gaze. The man had a gun, detective. He threatened to kill us all. I tried to de-escalate. He made a choice to leave. It was a half-truth, the best kind of lie. My phone, sitting on the table between us, buzzed. It had been buzzing non-stop for an hour. David, Sarah, unknown numbers.
That's him, I said, pointing to the screen.
I'll be calling. He's been texting me for money.
He says the kidnapper wants $300,000.
I was also like, yes, if Miller ordered, put it on speaker.
I tapped the green button.
Elena.
David's voice screamed through the speaker, distorted by panic and poor reception. Elena, thank God. Why aren't you answering? He sent me a video. He has her. He has a gun to her head. He says we have 40 minutes left. David, slow down, I said calmly. I'm at the police station. Detective Miller is listening. The police? David shrieked. Are you crazy? He said no police. He said he'll kill her if we involve the cops. You killed her, Elena. You just signed her death warrant. She signed it herself when she borrowed money from the mob, David, I said. Where are you? Oh, I'm at the house, he stammered. Willow Creek. I'm trying to find things to sell. I'm tearing the walls apart looking for cash. But there's nothing here. You took the furniture. You froze the accounts. I froze the stolen money, David, I corrected. And the house is seized. You are trespassing. Who cares about the house? He yelled. My mother is going to die. And Sarah is freaking out. She's having pains, Elena. The stress is hurting the baby. How can you be so cold? She's carrying my child. I looked at the detective. He was writing furiously. Suspect confirms mistress pregnancy. Possible motive for embezzlement. I suggest you get Sarah to a hospital then, I said. And I suggest you tell the kidnapper that I am not paying. I do not negotiate with terrorists. And I certainly don't pay off my husband's mother's gambling debts. You have the bonds, David screamed. I know you have them. Mom told me. She saw them in the safe before he dragged her out. Use the bonds, Elena. Save her. The bonds are evidence. I lied. The police seized them.
Jane, I hate you.
David sobbed. I swear to God, Elena, if she dies, I will kill you myself. That's a threat against a protected witness. Detective Miller spoke up, his voice booming. David Miller, this is the NYPD. We have traced your call. Stay where you are. Officers are en route to secure the premises and take you into protective custody. No. David yelled. The line went dead. Detective Miller looked at me. He's spiraling. A desperate man with a pregnant mistress and a kidnapped mother? He's dangerous. He's weak, I said, standing up. He won't do anything. He'll hide. We need to keep you here, Mrs. Miller, for your safety, until we find this guy. I can't stay here, I said. I have a business to run. And frankly, this station is not secure. If Vinny, the loan shark, knows I'm here, he knows I'm vulnerable when I leave. I'm safer at my own secure facility. Your office is a crime scene.
Right. I have other properties, I said. Lucas will take me. We'll be off the grid.
The detective hesitated, then nodded. Don't leave the city, and keep your phone on. We walked out of the precinct into the pre-dawn darkness. The city felt heavy, suffocating. Where are we really going? Lucas asked as he held the car door open. We need to find Sarah, I said. Who's paved twice? The mistress? Why? Because David is useless, I said, sliding into the leather seat. He's panicking. He's breaking walls looking for cash that isn't there. But Sarah? Sarah is a survivor. She hustled her way into my company. She hustled my husband, and she hustled $1 million house. If anyone knows where the rest of the money is buried, or where David might have hidden a stash that Martha didn't know about, it's her. You think they have a stash?
David is dumb, I said, but he's greedy. He embezzled $240. He spent $1.2 on the house. The math doesn't add up. Even with the mortgage fraud, there's a gap, a cash gap. And Sarah is the CFO of this little criminal enterprise.
One Creek is swarming with cops by now, Lucas said, starting the engine. If she was smart, she ran. Check her phone, I said. You still have the clone access, right? Lucas handed me his tablet. We tracked Sarah's device. It wasn't at Willow Creek. It wasn't at the police station. It was moving fast toward the airport. JFK. She's running, I said. She's leaving David. She's leaving Martha to die. And she's taking whatever is in her suitcase. We can catch her on the Van Wyck, Lucas said, hitting the siren he wasn't technically supposed to use. We tore through the highway traffic. I watched the dot moving on the map. She was close to Terminal 4. International departures. Where is she going? I muttered. She has no passport. I saw it in the safe at the office. She kept her personal documents there for safekeeping. Unless she had a fake one. We pulled up to the departures curb just as a yellow taxi slammed on its brakes. Sarah jumped out. She wasn't wearing the cocktail dress anymore. She was wearing a hoodie and sweatpants, dragging a large Louis Vuitton suitcase, also mine, stolen from the storage unit. She looked over her shoulder, terrified. She didn't see us. She ran toward the sliding doors.
Get her, I ordered.
Lucas was out of the car before it fully stopped. He moved like a shadow. He intercepted her right before the Delta check-in counter. He grabbed the handle of her suitcase. Sarah spun around, ready to scream. When she saw Lucas, her face went white. Then she saw me walking up behind him. "Going somewhere?" I asked.
Leave me alone.
She hissed, trying to yank the bag back. "I'm done. I'm out. You can have him. You can have the house. Just let me go." "Where are you going, Sarah?" I asked, looking at the departure board. "Tel Aviv? London? Or just anywhere that doesn't extradite for fraud?"
I didn't steal anything,
she cried.
David gave it to me.
"And what's in the bag?" I pointed to the heavy suitcase. "Clothes or assets?" "It's my baby stuff," she screamed. "I'm pregnant. You know that. I'm trying to protect my child." The moment.
Open it, I said.
"No, you have no right." "Lucas?" I nodded. Lucas didn't ask permission. He tipped the bag over and unzipped it. Sarah tried to stop him, scratching at his hands, but he pushed her back gently. He threw the lid open. It wasn't baby clothes. It wasn't cash. It was watches, dozens of them. Rolexes, Pateks, Audemars Piguet, and jewelry. Diamond necklaces, loose stones in velvet bags. I stared at the hoard. "This is where the money went," I whispered. "David didn't just spend it. He laundered it. He bought hard assets, portable wealth." "It's his retirement plan," Sarah sobbed, collapsing onto the linoleum floor of the terminal. People were staring. "He told me to take it. He said if anything happened, I should take the bag and run to his cousin in Montreal. He said he would meet me there." "He lied," I said. "He told me 5 minutes ago he was tearing the walls down looking for cash to save his mother. He didn't know you had this. You stole his getaway bag." Sarah looked up at me, mascara running down her face. "He chose his mother. He was going to give it to the shark. I couldn't let him. I have a baby to think about." "So you stole the ransom money," I summarized. "You sentenced Martha to death so you could keep the Rolexes."
Anyway,
Sarah yelled. "She only tolerates me because of the baby." She called me a useful incubator when she thought I couldn't hear. Why should I save her? I looked at the glittering pile of stolen wealth in the middle of JFK Terminal 4. This was the reality of their love. It was a transaction. And when the currency crashed, they turned on each other like rats in a bucket.
Zip it up, Lucas, I said.
"Are we taking her to the cops?" Lucas asked. "No," I said. "We're taking the bag, and we're taking her to where?" "To the shark," I said. Sarah stopped crying. She stared at me in horror. "What?" "You want to keep the money?" I asked her. "Fine, but you have to earn it. We're going to make a trade. David is useless. The police are too slow. But you're the perfect leverage." "You can't," she whispered. "I'm pregnant." "And Martha is old," I said. "We all have our sob stories. Get in the car, Sarah. We're going to save the family, whether you like it or not." I grabbed the handle of the suitcase. It was heavy, heavy with greed, heavy with sin. I turned and walked toward the exit. Sarah didn't move. "Lucas," I called back. "If she doesn't walk, drag her." I needed to find Vinny, and thanks to the tracker, I had secretly slipped into Martha's pocket when I hugged her goodbye at the restaurant. A goodbye that was actually a tactical plant. I knew exactly where he was taking her. He wasn't at the docks. He was at the one place nobody would look for a high-stakes hostage negotiation. Or tip shop. He was at Bella Sposa Bridal. The shop where this whole nightmare began.
it was poetic.
And it was going to be bloody. The ride to the bridal shop was silent, save for the rhythmic thrum of rain against the bulletproof glass of the town car and Sarah's muffled sobbing from the back seat. She was handcuffed now. Lucas carried zip ties for occasions just like this and sat next to the suitcase filled with the stolen millions that were supposed to be her golden parachute. I sat in the front, watching the GPS dot on my phone pulse at the same location where, only yesterday, my husband had kissed another woman and destroyed my marriage. Bella Sposa Bridal. It was the perfect place for a hostage exchange. It was closed, isolated in a high-end strip mall that went dark after 9 and filled with soundproof fitting rooms. Vinny, or whatever his real name was, had a sense of dramatic irony. He took Martha back to the scene of the crime. "We're 2 minutes out," Lucas said, killing the headlights as we turned into the service alley behind the plaza. "Elena, you stay in the car with the girl. I'll breach the back." "No," I said, checking the load on the tracker one last time. "He's expecting me." He called David's phone 5 minutes ago, but David was too busy hyperventilating to answer. He wants a negotiation, not a firefight. If you go in guns blazing, he shoots Martha just to prove a point. Of every wing in me bottle. "I'm bringing him a suitcase worth $2 million in liquid assets," I said. "Greed is predictable. Panic isn't." We parked behind a dumpster. The rain was coming down hard now, washing away the grime of the city, but leaving the rot underneath exposed. I got out, signaling Lucas to grab Sarah. "Get up," Lucas growled, hauling Sarah out by her arm. She stumbled, her designer sneakers splashing in a puddle. "Please," she whispered, shivering in the cold rain. "Don't make me go in there. He'll kill me. He knows I tried to run."
He doesn't care about you, Sarah.
I said, grabbing the handle of the heavy Louis Vuitton suitcase. "He cares about the debt. You're just a bonus." We walked to the back door. It was locked, obviously. Lucas didn't bother picking it. He used a specialized tool to snap the cylinder silently. The door swung open. The smell hit us first, lavender and expensive fabric, underlined by the metallic tang of fear. The shop was dark, lit only by the street lamps filtering through the front display windows, casting long, skeletal shadows across the rows of white gowns. They looked like ghosts standing in formation. "Hello," I called out softly. In the front, a gravelly voice answered. "Keep your hands where I can see them." We walked through the stockroom, past the racks of veils and tiaras, and into the main showroom. The scene was grotesque. Martha was sitting on the circular podium, the one where brides stand to say yes to the dress. She was tied to a gold velvet chair with zip ties. Her makeup was ruined, her hair a bird's nest of panic. But the worst part was what she was wearing. Someone Vinny had draped a veil over her head. It was crooked, torn, hanging over her face like a shroud. Vinny was leaning against the sales counter, his gun resting casually on the glass top. He looked bored. He looked dangerous. "Lucis Sprite, you took your time," he said, eyeing Lucas.
And you brought a cop.
"Private security," I corrected, stepping into the light. "He's just here to carry the bags." And her Vinny nodded at Sarah, who was cowering behind Lucas. "She's the one who had your money," I said. "We caught her at JFK trying to catch a flight to a non-extradition country. She had David's retirement fund in a suitcase." Martha made a muffled noise behind the gag they had put in her mouth. Her eyes went wide when she saw Sarah. If looks could kill, Sarah would have been incinerated on the spot. "Is that right?" Vinny stood up, picking up the gun. He walked over to Sarah. She flinched, squeezing her eyes shut. He used the barrel of the gun to lift her chin. "You were holding out on me, sweetheart. I thought we had an understanding. You marry the idiot, you pay the debt." "I was going to pay you," Sarah sobbed. "I just needed to get safe first." "Oh, liar," I said. I hoisted the suitcase onto the counter. "She was leaving you all to burn. But I'm not her. I'm a businesswoman. I'm here to close the account." I unzipped the suitcase. Vinny looked inside. He saw the glitter of gold, the Patek Philippes, the diamond chokers, the loose stones. It was a pirate's hoard, amassed by a cheating husband who thought he was smarter than the system. Vinny whistled. That's a lot of watches. Appraised value is roughly 2.5 million, I said. Your debt is 315,000. This covers the principal, the interest, and a very generous inconvenience fee. Vinny ran his hand over the watches. He wasn't looking at Martha anymore. He wasn't looking at Sarah. He was hypnotized by the wealth. We have a deal, he said. He closed the suitcase. You take the old lady, I take the bag. The girl, well, she's loose ends. You want her?
No, I said.
No, I said. I don't want her. But the police outside might. Vinny's head snapped up. You called the cops? I didn't have to, I said calmly. You triggered the silent alarm when you broke in through the front. The one I had installed yesterday. Level 5 security. Remember. Vinny looked at the front door. Through the rain-slicked glass, we saw the first flash of blue lights. Silent approach. They were surrounding the building. You set me up, Vinny snarled, raising the gun toward me.
No, I said. Not moving an inch. I just leveraged my assets.
You have two choices, Vinny. You can try to shoot your way out, in which case Lucas drops you before you pull the trigger. Or you can go out the back door right now. The alley is clear for another 30 seconds. You leave the bag. You leave the women. You live to loan another day. Vinny looked at the suitcase. He looked at the gun in Lucas's hand, which was now aimed directly at his chest. He looked at the flashing lights growing brighter outside. He cursed. He grabbed one handful of watches, stuffing them into his jacket pockets, and ran for the stockroom. Go, Lucas yelled, moving to clear the back. But I didn't move. I walked over to the podium. I pulled the gag out of Martha's mouth.
Famana,
She screamed, hyperventilating. Untie me! It's Hike going to come back. Get me out of here! In a minute, I said. I turned to Sarah. She was standing there, hands zip-tied, staring at the suitcase full of money she almost got away with. You, I said to Sarah. Come here. Sarah walked over slowly, trembling. Untie her, I ordered. My nails are fresh. I can't, Sarah whimpered, holding up her bound wrists. Figure it out, I said. Use your teeth. You're good at eating what doesn't belong to you. It was cruel, it was petty, and it was exactly what they deserved. While Sarah struggled to gnaw at the plastic ties binding Martha's wrists, the front door burst open.
Police, hands in the air!
A SWAT team poured into the bridal shop, rifles raised. I put my hands up slowly. Lucas put his hands up.
Martha started screaming.
Thank God! Save me! She's crazy! She brought a hitman here! The lead officer walked up to me. It was Detective Miller. He looked at the scene. The mother-in-law tied to a chair in a veil, the pregnant mistress chewing on zip ties, the open suitcase of stolen jewels, and me, standing in the middle of it all in an Alexander McQueen suit, looking utterly bored. Mrs. Miller, the detective sighed, lowering his weapon. I told you to stay at the precinct. I had to recover my company assets, detective, I said, pointing to the suitcase. And I believe I just solved your burglary case. Sarah Jenkins here was apprehended at JFK with these stolen goods. My mother-in-law was a hostage, and the man you're looking for went out the back alley. If you hurry, you might catch him. He is the one wearing my husband's Rolex. The detective barked orders into his radio. Officers swarmed the back. Another officer cut Martha loose. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing theatrically. My daughter-in-law! She orchestrated this. She knows him. I saw them wink at each other. Martha, I said, my voice cutting through her performance. Shut up, or I show the detective the text messages from your burner phone where you set up the meeting with Vinny in the first place. Martha clamped her mouth shut. Her eyes darted around the room. she realized she was cornered. And Sarah, I looked at the mistress. You might want to ask for a lawyer. Possession of stolen property over $1 million is a Class B felony. And since you're pregnant, I hope the prison has a nursery. Sarah wailed as an officer cuffed her properly. I walked over to the counter. I zipped up the suitcase. This is evidence, the detective said, putting his hand on it. It is, I agreed. Tag it, log it. But remember, detective, the insurance policy is in my name. When this is over, it all comes back to me. I walked out of the shop into the rain. The air felt clean, cold, but clean. David's car screeched into the parking lot. He jumped out looking frantic. He saw the police. He saw Sarah being let out in cuffs. He saw his mother wrapped in a shock blanket. He ran toward them. Mom! Sarah!
Oh my God.
You didn't even see me standing in the shadows.
He ran to Sarah first. Babe, are you okay? Is the baby okay? Sarah looked at him. She spat in his face. You broke, useless coward. You have nothing. She took it all. David recoiled. He turned to his mother. Mom, Martha slapped him. A sharp, cracking sound that echoed in the parking lot. You idiot! You let her win. You let her take the money. David stood there, holding his cheek, standing between the two women he had destroyed his life for, realizing that neither of them loved him. They only loved what he could give them. And now he had nothing left to give.
I watched the darkness.
Lucas, I said, take me home. I have a merger to close in the morning. And them, Lucas asked, nodding at the dysfunctional family breakdown happening under the police floodlights. They're not my problem anymore, I said. They're the state's problem. I got into the car. I didn't look back. But as we drove away, I pulled out my phone. I had one last notification, a transaction alert. Payment received, $3,000, fair trade.
$13,000
From insurance settlement, corporate theft, and kidnapping liability. I smiled. I had insured the jewelry, I had insured the bonds, and I had insured the key man myself. The theft, the chaos, the destruction. It was all covered. I wasn't just breaking even, I was turning a profit. The courtroom was a theater of misery, and for once, I wasn't the one sweating in the spotlight. 3 months had passed since the raid at Bella Sposa Bridal. 3 months of legal maneuvering, frozen assets, and the slow, agonizing dismantling of the life David thought he was entitled to. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my lawyer Mark beside me. On the other side sat David. He looked like a ghost of the man I had married. His suit was ill-fitting, he had lost 20 pounds, and his hair was graying at the temples. He was being represented by a court-appointed public defender because after I seized the assets of DM Solutions and enforced the confession of judgment, he couldn't afford a private attorney. Mr. Miller, the judge said, peering over her glasses, you are petitioning for emergency spousal support pendente lide, despite the signed confession of embezzlement? Your Honor, David's lawyer stood up, looking tired. My client acknowledges the irregularities. However, he has no income, no housing, and he is expecting a child. The mother of said child, Ms. Sarah Jenkins, is currently facing felony charges and cannot support the infant. Mr. Miller is destitute. I stifled a laugh. It came out as a cough.
The judge looked at me. Mrs. Miller?
Mark stood up. Your Honor, Mr. Miller is not destitute. He is an able-bodied man with a master's degree. He is free to get a job at McDonald's. As for the child, we request a court-ordered paternity test before any discussion of child support is entertained. My client has reason to believe that the timeline of the pregnancy does not align with Mr. Miller's activities. David shot up from his chair. That's a lie. It's my baby. Sarah swore it. Sarah also swore she didn't steal the watches, I said calmly from my seat. And we saw how that ended. The judge banged the gavel. Order, motion for paternity testing granted. The results will be expedited. We will reconvene in 48 hours. As we walked out of the courtroom, David tried to corner me in the hallway. Elena, he pleaded, reaching out a hand but stopping short when Lucas stepped in front of me. Please, I'm living in a motel, a Roach motel on the turnpike. Mom is in jail awaiting trial. Sarah is under house arrest at her parents' place in Ohio. I have nobody. You have your freedom, David, I said, checking my watch. I could have pressed charges for the wire fraud. I didn't. I let you walk. That was my parting gift. But the baby, he whispered, tears welling up. If it's a boy, I wanted to name him after my dad. I just want to be a father, Elena. You never gave me that. That stung. We had tried for years. It never happened. I always thought it was stress. Now I knew it was probably a blessing. We'll see what the DNA says, I said coldly. But David, if that baby is yours, you better hope it inherits its mother's hustle, because it's certainly not inheriting my money. I walked away. The next 48 hours were a blur of business. I closed the European merger, I finalized the insurance payout, and I prepared for the auction. The house on Willow Creek Lane, the love nest built on stolen money, was going up for foreclosure auction on the courthouse steps. Since Vanguard Logistics held the lien, I had a controlling interest. I wanted to be there. I wanted to see it sold to strangers. I arrived at the courthouse steps at 10 in the morning. A crowd had gathered. Investors, house flippers, and curious neighbors who had heard the scandal. And David was there. He was standing at the back of the crowd, watching his dream home being sold off like cattle. Do we have an opening bid? The auctioneer boomed. 800,000, a man in a cowboy hat yelled. 50, a woman in a power suit countered. 900,000. I watched David's face with every bid. Each number was a dagger. That house represented his escape, his fantasy. And now, it was being parted out to the highest bidder. Sold, the auctioneer yelled, to the gentleman in the hat for $1.1 million. It was over. The house was gone. The equity would come back to my company to cover the embezzlement. David turned to leave. He looked defeated. But I wasn't done with him. Lucas, I said, bring the car around. We're going to the medical center. The results are in. We arrived at the lab an hour later. Sarah was there, video conferenced in from Ohio, where she was wearing an ankle monitor. She looked pale, puffy, and angry. David sat in the room, wringing his hands. The doctor walked in, holding a sealed envelope. We compared the fetal DNA from the prenatal blood draw against Mr. David Miller's sample, the doctor stated, professional and detached. David leaned forward. It's mine, right? Tell her it's mine. The doctor opened the envelope. He scanned the paper. He frowned slightly. Mr. Miller, the doctor said. The probability of paternity is 0%. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy enough to crush a lung. What? David whispered. You are excluded as the biological father, the doctor repeated. David stared at the screen where Sarah's pixelated face hovered. Sarah? What is he talking about? Sarah didn't look ashamed. She looked bored. She rolled her eyes.
If you can trap it.
Sarah! David screamed, standing up and knocking his chair over. Who is it? You told me it was mine. You told me that's why we needed the house. Who is it? Sarah looked at the camera. She smirked. A cold, hard smirk that reminded me of Vinny the Loan Shark. It doesn't matter, David, she said, her voice tinny through the speakers. You were just the wallet, and you ran out of cash.
So I moved on.
Who David roared? Was it him? Was it the guy from the gym? Was it one? It was Vinny, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. I was standing in the corner, leaning against the wall. What? David wheezed. The loan shark, I explained. Think about it, David. Why did the shark let Martha borrow so much money? Why did he give her $300,000 in credit? Sharks don't give credit to old ladies unless they have leverage. I looked at Sarah on the screen. Sarah was the leverage, I said. She wasn't just sleeping with you, David. She was sleeping with the loan shark to keep him away from Martha. And when she got pregnant, she saw an opportunity. She pinned it on you because you were the safe option. You were the one with the rich wife. Sarah's face on the screen went white. I had guessed right. Is that true? David whispered, looking at the screen with horror. You were with him? The man who kidnapped my mother? He has more money than you, Sarah spat back.
And he's a better man. At least he fights for what he wants.
You just cry to your wife. David collapsed. He literally fell to the floor, sobbing. The realization that his entire rebellion, the affair, the theft, the house, was based on a lie so profound, it shattered his reality. He wasn't the hero of his own story. He was the mark. I signaled the doctor. We walked out. I left David on the floor of the medical center. I didn't help him up. I didn't call him a cab. I walked out to the parking lot where Lucas was waiting. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Results? Lucas asked. Not his, I said. Vinny's? Lucas let out a low whistle. That's dark. So David has nothing. No wife, no mistress, no money, no house, and now no baby. He has his freedom, I said, opening the car door. That's more than he deserves. So, is it over? Lucas asked. Are we done? I looked at the city skyline in the distance. Almost, I said. There is one loose end. What? Martha, I said. She's in jail, but her trial starts next week, and she has been calling me. Collect.
You haven't answered.
No, I said, but she left a voicemail. She says she has information. She says she knows where the rest of the money is. The rest? What rest? We recovered the watches. We sold the house. Martha claims, I said, pulling up the voicemail transcription on my phone, that David didn't just embezzle from my company. She claims he stole from her too, from the family trust that supposedly didn't exist. And she wants to trade that info for a lawyer. She wants a deal, I said. But if David has a hidden trust fund and he let me pay for everything for 10 years, that changes the divorce settlement. That's not just embezzlement. That's fraud on a marital contract. I looked at Lucas. I don't just want to leave him with nothing, Lucas, I said, my eyes hardening. If he has a trust fund, I want that too.
You're gonna visit her in prison?
Yes, I said. Rikers Island. Visitor hours end at 4. Drive fast. The game wasn't over. It had just entered overtime, and I wasn't playing for points anymore. I was playing for the championship. The bridge to Rikers Island is a desaturated gray, a slab of concrete suspended over water that looks too thick to flow. It's a place where colors go to die. I sat in the back of the town car, watching the razor wire fences scroll by. I had been to boardrooms in Tokyo, galas in Paris, and factories in Detroit, but I had never been to a prison. It smelled of industrial bleach and unwashed bodies, a sensory assault that my Chanel perfume couldn't mask.
I wasn't here for charity. I was here for a trade.
Visitor processing takes 20 minutes, Lucas said, handing me my ID. I'll wait here. They won't let me pass the checkpoint with my weapon. I'll be fine, I said, buttoning my coat. Martha isn't dangerous anymore. She's just desperate. The visiting room was a cavernous space filled with plastic chairs and the low hum of weeping, wives crying for husbands, mothers crying for sons. And then there was me, sitting across a scratched metal table from the woman who had tried to bankrupt me. Martha was led in by a guard. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on her frame. Her hair, usually dyed a fierce auburn and sprayed into a helmet, was gray at the roots and flat against her skull. She looked 20 years older. She looked like what she was, a gambling addict who had lost her last chip. She sat down. She didn't look at me. She looked at my hands, specifically at the diamond ring I still wore on my right hand, a ring I bought for myself. You came, she rasped. Her voice was wrecked, probably from screaming at her public defender. You said you had information, I said, placing my hands on the table. You said you knew where the money was. I have exactly 15 minutes before I have to be back in Manhattan for a conference call. Don't waste them.
I want a lawyer,
Martha whispered, leaning in. A real lawyer. Not that overworked kid they gave me.
I want someone who plays golf with the judge. I want bail.
Bail is set at $500,000, I said. And you have no collateral. Vinny took the watches, and I took them back. You have nothing. I have the account number, she hissed. David's, she said. Her eyes darted around, checking for guards. The one he swore he'd never touch. The Doomsday Fund. I sat back, crossing my arms. David doesn't have a Doomsday Fund. I audited his life. I saw every transaction. He embezzled $240,000 and spent every dime on the house and the mistress. He's broke. He's broke, Liquid, Martha corrected, a spark of her old arrogance returning. But he's not asset poor. You think my husband, David's father, left us nothing when he died? You think we lived on air?
I know you lived on me, I said coldly.
We lived on you because it was easy, Martha snapped. But the trust, the Miller family trust, that was sacred. My husband set it up in the Cayman Islands 20 years ago. It was supposed to be for David's children. But since the baby isn't his, she trailed off, a flicker of pain crossing her face. Even monsters have feelings, apparently. Go on, I said. David has access, she said. He's the sole beneficiary now that his father is dead. He never told you because he wanted to keep it separate. He called it his escape hatch. In case you ever divorced him. In case the business failed. My blood ran cold. For 10 years, I had worked 80-hour weeks. I had paid the mortgage. I had paid for his car. I had paid for his consulting business to keep his ego afloat. There were months in the beginning when I ate instant noodles so he could have steak because I believed in his potential. And all that time, he was sitting on a pile of cash in the Caymans? How much, I asked. My voice was quiet, dangerous. Martha licked her cracked lips. $4 million. The number hung in the air between us. $4 million. He had watched me stress over payroll. He had watched me cry when we lost our first big client. He had let me carry the weight of the entire world on my shoulders while he had $4 million sitting in a tax haven, earning interest. He wasn't just a thief. He was a parasite. Why are you telling me this? I asked Martha. Why betray your golden boy now? Because he left me to die. Martha slammed her hand on the table, startling the guard nearby. He told Vinny he didn't have the money. He could have wired the funds from the Cayman account in 10 minutes and saved me. But he didn't. He wanted to keep his hoard. He chose the money over his mother. She looked at me, her eyes burning with hate. Not for me, but for the son she had raised.
We chose the money,
she repeated. So now, I choose me. You get me a lawyer, Elena. You get me a plea deal. And I give you the account number and the password.
You have the password?
I made him give it to me years ago, she sneered, just in case he got hit by a bus. I wrote it down in my Bible, the one the police seized from the house. I have the Bible, I said. Lucas had grabbed a box of personal items from the house before the auction. It was in my trunk. It's in Leviticus, she said. Help-laid verses, the chapter and verse numbers. That's the account. The password is the date his father died. Backward. Anab Bafage. I stood up. Well, I'll get you a lawyer, Martha, I said. I'll hire the sharkiest defense attorney in New York. He might even get you house arrest. Thank you, she wept, slumping in relief. Thank you, Elena. You're a good girl. I always said that. Into Tam, Zoto graining and for you. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I want to see David's face when he realizes his safety net just turned into a noose. I walked out of the prison. The air outside still smelled like the Hudson River. But to me, it smelled like victory. Lucas, I said, getting into the car. Open the trunk, get the box marked Martha Personal. We found the Bible, a worn leather King James version. I turned to Leviticus. Sure enough, chapter 19, verse 11 was highlighted in yellow. Ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another. The irony was suffocating. Account number 100 and 100 and 100, decoding the cipher Martha had described. Lucas, hand me the laptop. I tethered the laptop to the car's Wi-Fi. I navigated to the offshore bank's portal, a shady institution known for privacy, not ethics. I typed in the account number, I typed in the password, 041298, the date David's father died. A spinning wheel. Access granted. I stared at the balance stub. $4,250,000. 0, 0. It was real. He had $4 million. He had let me pay for his mother's gambling debts. He had let me pay for his mistress's house using my stolen money. He had let me work myself into the ground, all while he sat on a fortune. Bliss, I said, my voice shaking with rage. He has $4 million. That's life-changing, Lucas said. Why steal $240 if he had $4 million? Because the $4 million was his, I said, realizing the depth of David's narcissism. The $240 was mine. He didn't want to spend his money, he wanted to spend mine. It wasn't about need, it was about power. He wanted to use me up. I looked at the transfer options on the screen. I can't steal it, I said. If I wire it to myself, I'm no better than him. And the feds will flag it. So what do? I don't steal it, I smiled. Dark plan forming. I repatriate it. I'm going to notify the IRS, I said. This is an undeclared offshore account. The penalty for willful non-disclosure is 50% of the balance, plus back taxes, plus interest. No, I said. I'm going to report it under the IRS Whistleblower Program. Do you know what the reward is for reporting tax evasion over $2 million? Lucas shook his head. 15 to 30% of the collected proceeds, I said. I turn him in. The IRS seizes the account. They take everything. He goes to federal prison for tax evasion, which carries a mandatory sentence, unlike the wire fraud I let him slide on, and the government writes me a check for $1 million as a thank you. You destroy him legally, Lucas grinned. And you get paid for it. I filled out IRS Form 211 on the laptop right there in the shadow of the prison. I attached the screenshots of the account. I attached Martha's statement, which I would get my new lawyer to notarize. I hit submit. Done, I said, closing the laptop. The IRS moves slow, but they never stop. By the time David realizes his account is frozen, agents will be knocking on his motel door. Where to now? Lucas asked. To the motel, I said. I want to say goodbye. We drove to the Turnpike Inn, a depressing strip of rooms off the highway in New Jersey. David's B&W, which I had stopped making payments on, so it was days away from repossession, was parked outside room 12. I walked up to the door and knocked. David opened it. He looked awful. Unshaven, wearing a stained t-shirt. The room behind him smelled of stale pizza and despair. Elena, he looked at me with a flicker of hope. Did you change your mind? Did you bring money? No, I said, standing in the doorway. I brought news.
What news?
I visited your mother, I said. She sends her love. And she gave me a Bible verse, Leviticus 19:11. David's face went white. He grabbed the doorframe to steady himself. You.
I know about the Cayman account, David, I said. I know about the 4 million.
Elena, listen, he stammered, backing away. That was for us, for our future. I was saving it for retirement. You were saving it while I drowned, I said. You let me carry you for 10 years while you had a winning lottery ticket in your pocket. That isn't love, David. That's parasitism. I can explain. Don't bother, I said. I just wanted to tell you that I didn't take the money. He let out a breath he had been holding. Oh, thank God. Thank God, Elena. Look, I'll share it. I'll give you half. Just don't tell the lawyers. We can split it and start over. I didn't take it, I repeated. But I did tell the IRS about it. David froze. His eyes bulged. You what? I filed a whistleblower report 10 minutes ago, I said cheerfully. They are freezing the account as we speak. You're looking at massive fines, back taxes, and, oh yes, prison time. Real prison time, not the country club kind. You can't do that, he screamed. That's my money. That's my father's money. It's the government's money now, I said. And since I reported it, I get a cut. Consider it my consulting fee. I turned to walk away. David lunged for me. You bitch! You ruined everything! Lucas stepped out from the side, blocking him. He pushed David back into the room with one hand. David stumbled and fell onto the dirty carpet.
Goodbye, David, I said. I hope the motel has free cable. You're going to want to watch the news.
I walked back to the car. I didn't look back at the shouting man in the cheap motel room. Home, Lucas, I said. My real home. The sun was setting as we drove back toward the city. The skyline glittered like gold. I was tired. I was single. But I was free. I had canceled the credit card. I had canceled the mistress. I had canceled the mother-in-law. And now, I had canceled the husband. My phone pinged a notification from the bank. Daily balance alert. $14,500,000. I smiled. Living well really is the best revenge. But making a profit off your enemies? That's just good business. It has been exactly 365 days since I stood in the rain outside a bridal shop and watched my family dissolve into the back of police cruisers. People tell you that time heals all wounds, but that's a lie poor people tell themselves to feel better about losing. Time doesn't heal anything. Time is just a ledger. It tracks interest, it tracks depreciation, and if you're smart, it tracks compound growth. I sat in my new office, the penthouse suite of the building I now owned entirely, looking at the envelope on my desk. It was from the Department of the Treasury, standard government issue, brown fiber paper, windowless. It looked boring, but I knew exactly what was inside. I used a silver letter opener to slice the seal. I pulled out the check, pay to the order of Elena Miller. Amount. Question 70623. The IRS had moved faster than expected. They had seized David's Cayman account, slapped him with maximum penalties, and liquidated the assets. And true to their word, they had cut me a check for 30% of the recovery. I looked at the number, $1.2 million. It wasn't the money that made me smile. I made more than that in a quarter with my logistics company. It was the source. This was David's escape hatch. This was the money he hid from me while I paid his car lease. And now it was sitting on my desk, ready to be deposited into my investment portfolio. Lucas, I called out. Lucas walked in. He wasn't just my head of security anymore. He was my chief operating officer. Loyalty pays.
It arrived.
He asked, eyeing the check.
It did, I said. Deposit it. And send a photocopy to inmate number 89404 at Fort Dix Federal Correctional Institution. I want him to know his retirement fund arrived safely.
That's cold, Lucas grinned. Even for you. He has plenty of time to read it, I said. 8 years to be exact. David had pleaded guilty to tax evasion and wire fraud. The judge, not amused by the secret offshore account or the embezzlement, had thrown the book at him. He was currently serving his sentence in a low-security facility in New Jersey. I heard he was working in the library. Fitting, since he liked to tell stories so much. What about the others? I asked, swiveling my chair to look at the city. Martha was released to a halfway house last week, Lucas reported, opening his tablet. She's working part-time at a laundromat in Queens. Minimum wage. She has a garnishment order on her paycheck to pay back Vinny.
Vinny didn't kill her?
No, Vinny is a businessman. Dead people can't pay debts. He has her on a payment plan. She pays him $50 a week. At that rate, she'll be debt-free in about 140 years. I imagined Martha, with her manicured nails and her airs of aristocracy, folding strangers' underwear for $7 an hour. It was a poetic justice I couldn't have written better myself. For doing my God. Think. End. I asked the loose end. Sarah is complicated, Lucas said. She had the baby. A boy. DNA confirmed it's Vinny's. And she married him.
Twist my chair around. She married the loan shark who kidnapped her boyfriend's mother.
She did. Apparently, Vinny likes having a trophy wife, and Sarah likes having access to credit cards that don't decline. She's living in a McMansion in Staten Island now, posting photos of the baby on Instagram. She looks tired, but rich. She traded one prison for another, I mused. She wanted a man who would pay for everything. She got one, but now she belongs to him. If she ever tries to leave Vinny, well, we know how he handles collections. So everyone had settled into their new realities. The ecosystem had rebalanced. The parasites were gone or attached to new hosts, and I was the apex predator, alone at the top of the food chain. There is one more thing, Lucas said, hesitating slightly. What your fod? The bridal shop. Bella Sposa.
What about it?
The owner is selling after the raid, and the news coverage, business tanked. Nobody wants to buy a wedding dress where a mob kidnapping took place. He's liquidating the property. It's going cheap. I tapped my finger on the desk. Bella Sposa. The place where I saw the notification. The place where my marriage ended and my life began. Buy it, I said. Buy it, Lucas blinked. You want to get into the bridal business? No, I said, standing up and walking to the window. I want to bulldoze it.
You want to tear it down?
I want to burn it to the ground, I said.
Really?
And then I want to build a women's shelter on the lot, a place for women who need to escape financial abuse, women who need to learn how to open their own bank accounts, how to hide money from controlling partners, how to build their own empires.
The Elena Miller Center for Financial Independence, Lucas suggested. I like the sound of that, I said. Make the offer. Cash. Close by Friday. I picked up my purse, a new Birkin, bought with my own money, carrying my own black card. I'm going out for lunch, I said. I have a date. A date. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Anyone I know? No, I smiled. Someone new, a forensic accountant. He helped me find the offshore account. He's smart, he's successful, and most importantly, he has his own money. I walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, I thought about David sitting in his cell reading the photocopy of the check. I thought about Martha folding laundry. I thought about Sarah looking over her shoulder in her Staten Island mansion. They had tried to break me. They had tried to steal my life. But they forgot the most important rule of business. Never underestimate the person who signs the checks. I walked out of the building and into the bright, blinding sunlight of New York City. The air smelled of exhaust and opportunity. I took a deep breath.
I was Elena Miller. I was a CEO. I was a whistleblower. And I was single.
And for the first time in 10 years, my credit score wasn't the only thing that was perfect. My life was too. So, to anyone out there watching this, checking their banking app with a knot in their stomach, wondering why the numbers don't add up, trust your gut, check the statements, look at the trash, and if you find a receipt that doesn't belong, don't just cancel the card. Cancel the whole subscription. Because the only thing more expensive than a divorce is keeping a thief in your bed.